Good evening. So today I have a book review, Sleeping Beauties, Stephen and Owen King. This book was published in 2017, 720 pages long. This was a behemoth, and it was a struggle for me this week. Probably saw several different videos, shorts that I did. But anyways, before we get into all that, summary of the book. The book takes place in a town called Dueling. It's in the Appalachians. You know, you have this incident at the very beginning of the book with this mysterious woman. She beats to death these two meth dealers and sets their house on fire. The local sheriff, who's a woman named Lila, ends up taking her into custody and a prison, which the prison so happens to be in the women's correctional facility and Dueling. Also happens to be the place where Lila's husband, Clint, works at as a psychologist. It took me like 300 pages to really kind of realize who the main characters were. You know, you jump around from a lot of different point of views. And so Lila, Clint, and then obviously this mysterious woman who they dubbed the name Evie Black is obviously one of the main characters. At the same time that, you know, you have this crime that Lila abducts Evie Black and takes her to jail, you have this mysterious Aurora thing that's happening where women in that town and in the correctional facility, that when they fall asleep, they go into these cocoon things, and if you try to break them out of this cocoon, they become inherently violent and end up killing people. And so there's this mass hysteria where this is all, you know, it's taken a while for this word to get out that you don't interrupt, don't bother them, let them, cocoon. And then you have women that are trying not to fall asleep, and so you have all these characters and they're trying to do all these different things, and what are you going to do with the people in the correctional facility, and there's all this mass chaos. At the same time, you have kind of the men of the town taking different roles because, the women are starting to basically go to sleep and being in cocoons. Well, after a while of the women going into cocoons and everything happening, you realize that the women that go to sleep in these cocoons end up being taken to through a portal to like this alternate dimension, post-apocalyptic Dueling place. And they start to realize, without men, they have to figure out things and that kind of thing. It's very bizarre. I think what the premise really was is that Evie was kind of this emissary, and she makes these bold predictions because her character was actually one of the characters I liked at first because there's all this mystery about her. She's got telepathic power. She can talk to animals. And so Evie is like this emissary where she makes these premonitions that, the town's going to turn on her. They're going to try to kill her. The men are going to become what men are, and they're going to use weapons, and they're going to burn the cocoons, and they're going to pillage and rape and murder and all that jazz. And the women are better off being in this alternate Dueling town without men and building, a society without men involved. And so as the men try to reason, because you have groups that are wanting, we can't afford to let them, flip out and kill any more men. We got to deal with it type thing. And then you have some men that are like, hey, let's let this play out. And there's a reason for this. And they feel like, Evie's testing them, whether are they good or evil type thing. And so they end up allowing Evie to live when she feels like they're going to kill him and show their true colors. And Evie lives. So she goes back to this alternate world, this alternate place, and gives the women a choice of whether they want to stay or whether they want to return, and the women want to return. So then you end up having the women wake back up. And then life goes on type thing. So that's kind of like the premise of the book. So what did I like? I like the Evie character. I like the mysteriousness of it, that she has alternate powers. She talks to animals. She controls rats. She can, there's the fox character and the snake, and, there's all this kind of, interesting intrigue about her. Lila and Clint, I mean, they were okay. As main characters, they were okay. There was a lot of different characters, a lot of minor characters, and I didn't really have, likes of either one. And really, that's kind of about all I liked about the book. I mean, my dislikes, I could go on a tangent about. I really could, but I'll give you a few. The pacing's horrible. I mean, it's a typical Stephen King where I think you have an interesting start and premise, but the pacing's awful. The character expanse is just far too great. Some of the minor characters really are unrememberable and don't really have an importance. There's a lot of buildup around the cocooning. It could have been done really a lot quicker, and then we could have got on to something else. Again, I really struggled. I was about 300 pages in before I realized, okay, these are the main people, I guess. Because you jump around from a lot of POVs. I didn't really care for that because none of them were really fleshed out enough to where you got that character development that you wanted. And so I really didn't connect with any of them, which is another kind of part I disliked. I really didn't connect with any characters. And I don't know if that's just because the co-writing of the book with Stephen and Owen King, he was taking this down this path, and then he really couldn't get his hands on too far, or couldn't really solidify anything to where then Owen had to take up, I don't know. It was a slog. The ending was just kind of like, you gone through 600 pages and this is the climactic, they wake back up because they make a choice. I mean, it was kind of just like the whole point of it all was this otherworld person making Evie this emissary that has, these special powers, but it's all just a ploy to see if, women want to choose to be in a world without men. It kind of almost it was almost kind of edging on the feminism. I mean, it was very strange. If I would have done here's some of my least favorite Stephen King books after I read this would be absolutely 100% on the list. And in fact, when I was thinking about it today, as I was getting close to the end of this read, Elevation, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, I do remember, and I do remember kind of being invested in the story and wanting to see it through because, I had some enjoyment of this. This was just an absolute. I mean, it's one of those things I wish I had those 6 days of my life back kind of thing. There's really not a lot here that I could just say that I like. And I'm just going to leave it at that because I could go on just a huge soapbox and rant about this for a long, long time. But the pacing was horrible. I didn't connect with any of the characters. It just wasn't, it didn't really grab my attention. There was a couple parts during the cocooning that got interesting, especially when it got violent. But that was it. It was a small section of the overall book. And then when you think you're gonna go somewhere with this premise, it doesn't go anywhere. And the climax is just completely irrelevant. It was just after 5 days, I am now at the climax and this is what I got. If it was a movie, I'd be asking for my money back. I really would. Again, the only thing I can kind of say is I'm down to one book left in his library to read now. And that's the only positive I could say after finishing that. Really. As far as a rating, I give this a 1.5. 1.5. My first one book that I've rated on the channel, a 1.5. I mean, and that's being generous, to be honest with you. I just did not connect. Maybe, 10 years from now, I'll pick it up back off the shelf, or 20 years from now, and I'll give it another shot, and maybe it'll be different, but probably not. I mean, I have no desire to read it again, to be honest with you. Anyways, again, I don't want to digress, but that's my book review. Stephen King, Sleeping Beauties, 1.5 out of 5. Have a good evening.